Tonight's forum presented by the Hancock County Republican Party.
Good evening. I'm Chris Oakes, and welcome to our latest candidate forum featuring the two individuals running in the Republican primary to become Hancock County prosecuting attorney. There is no incumbent in this race, as Philip Regal is running to become the next Common Pleas Court judge. Our candidates are Sean Abbott and Heather Pendleton. Thanks to both of you for being here. As with past forums of this type, most of the questions, which neither candidate has seen in advance, will be directed generally to both of you, and we will allow 2 minutes for responses. Follow-up questions or further discussion between the candidates will be allotted 1 minute. We're not going to turn off anyone's microphone the moment the timer expires, but we do want to respect those time limits as much as possible so that we can cover as much ground as possible in the time that we have. So with that, we will begin with 2 minutes each for opening remarks, and we'll begin with Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you also to WFIN for putting this event together. I truly expect it to be very informative for the voters of Hancock County. My name is Sean Abbott. I am running for Hancock County Prosecutor. The Hancock County Prosecutor by law has two main responsibilities. One, keep our community safe through the prosecution of our felony criminal laws. And two, provide sound legal advice to our county elected officers, officials, and township trustees. County prosecutor is an attorney-level position that requires extensive legal and jury trial experience, commitment to community, ability to remain cool under pressure, strong communication and relationship skills, and the ability to manage and lead people. I possess these skills, and I have the resume for this position. I have served as a law clerk for the United States District Court and the United States Attorney's Office. I have been an actively practicing attorney for over 10 years. Half of my career spent in the private practice of law, and the other half serving as an assistant prosecuting attorney, wearing all hats of a county prosecutor's office. But most importantly, I have extensive jury trial experience. I have served as lead or co-counsel in 18 adult felony jury trials, securing convictions for rape, burglary, robbery. I have convicted murderers, drug traffickers, and domestic abusers. But not only am I an experienced trial attorney, I am also committed to Hancock County. I was born, raised, and educated here, and my family has chosen to reside here and raise our children here. I'm actively involved. I am a member of Rotary. I volunteer for the United Way. I officiate football. I coach softball. I serve on the Penny Amateur Hockey Association board, and I've been a poll worker for the Board of Elections. I've built houses for Habitat for Humanity, and I'm an active member of First Presbyterian Church here in Findlay. I am the most qualified and experienced person for this position. I'm committed to Hancock County, and more importantly, I'm committed to keeping Hancock County safe.
Thank you. Ms. Pendleton.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Heather Pendleton. I am currently an assistant prosecutor for the Hancock County Prosecutor's Office. I've served in that role for the last 7 years. I am also chairman of the Hancock County Republican Party Executive Committee. I grew up in Fostoria, not far from here. I graduated from high school in 1991. I stayed close to home, and I worked very hard at 2 jobs and took care of my parents in the meantime. In 2000, I was blessed to be able to enroll in the University of Findlay. I graduated from there in 2003, summa cum laude. You might say I was a woman on a mission. I commuted to Ohio Northern University after that in Ada for law school, still maintaining my roots here in Hancock County. I graduated from there in 2006 and then opened my own small private law firm. In 2017, Prosecutor Phil Regal called me up and said, "Have I got a position for you?" So I accepted that job as assistant prosecutor, and I jumped in with both feet. In my 7 years of serving this community as your assistant prosecutor, I've gotten convictions in rape, robbery, felonious assault, involuntary manslaughter, and sexual battery, just to name a few. I've wrestled with what evidence to show a jury because the injuries were so graphic and the sexual assault videos were so horrific, I wasn't sure that I even wanted jurors to see them. I've held the hand of a victim who is trembling and afraid to testify against her own abuser. I've gone to murder scenes in the middle of the night, and I've gone on Metrich drug busts in this county where dealers were arrested and drugs were confiscated. Evenings, weekends, and holidays, I answer my phone when law enforcement calls. As assistant prosecutor, it is my job to protect my community, and that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years. My name is Heather Pendleton, and I am ready now to serve as your next prosecutor. Thank you.
Let's begin with your philosophy of what the role of prosecutor is in the larger context of the criminal justice system as a whole. In other words, what are the key principles in creating and maintaining a strong, efficient office that operates most effectively with law enforcement, with the courts, and with the public? And we'll begin with Ms. Pendleton.
Well, as assistant prosecutor for the last 7 years, I'm fortunate in that role to have built relationships with law enforcement at every level, including Findlay Police Department, Hancock County Sheriff's deputies, and State Highway Patrol. Those relationships are paramount to our ability to prosecute crimes because not every case that comes into us is perfect from the outset. A lot of times we have to meet with these individuals, get them to go back out, do more investigative work, and then resubmit the crime to us so that we can be effective prosecutors. I have built a reputation of being tough on crime, and I'm not going to let up on that. It's what I do, it's what I've been doing, and it's what I'm going to continue to do for my county and my city to protect this community. Thank you.
Mr. Abbott.
You say on the whole. That's one of the things about the prosecutor's office that a lot of people probably don't realize is that the prosecutor touches so many different aspects of our community, of Hancock County. You know, they interact with law enforcement. They have to build strong relationships with our police officers, with our highway patrol, with the sheriff's deputies, with the chiefs of those departments, chief of police with the sheriff. But with that, they also have to walk hand in hand with the providers in our city and community, the mental health providers, the addiction providers. So with all that, the county prosecutor has to have a hand in everything. They have to take a lead in all of those different functions of the community. They have to be visible. They have to be present. And when you have those strong relationships, you know when a law enforcement officer brings you a case, you can review it, look at it to make sure the elements are there. If they're not, you send it back, and they know exactly what you're asking for. You can say, this element's strong, this element's weak. You know, if you can get more in here, we'll present this case to the grand jury. But if you can't, there's nothing we can do about it. You know, sometimes law enforcement's mad when they hear that. But, you know, that when you have that trust and relationship, they know that you're coming at it from a good place with good intentions, with good faith. Because the criminal justice system is serious. It's very important. You have to do it right, and you have to have the right intentions when you proceed with a case. So as long as you've got that, you've got the strong relationships with your law enforcement, your strong relationships with, you know, the providers in the community, we're going to be doing great things.
Each of you has spent time as both an assistant prosecutor and in private practice. Is there a specific lesson that immediately comes to mind from your experience that has helped shape your vision of how you would run the office of prosecuting attorney? And we'll begin with Mr. Abbott.
A specific lesson. You know, I have served in probably over 20 counties in the state of Ohio. I have, you know, represented husbands, wives, you know, landlords, tenants, the state of Ohio versus criminals. I've represented criminals against the state of Ohio. You know, the lesson I think that you take out of that is the criminal justice system, you know, requires competence. It requires preparedness. It requires, you know, knowledge of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, you know, to, I guess, you know, look at it as a whole. You take all of those experiences. You know, there's really not one specific lesson. It really is. It's just it's a conglomeration of all the experiences you have that, you know, sharpen your tool belt, that hone your skills, that you can, you know, issue spot when you need to, that you can, you know, every case that comes through is going to be different. You know, there are no two cases that are like. Every fact is a little bit different. Every, you know, issue is a little bit different, but the law is always the same. So we need to make sure, you know, you're using your skills, your tools, you know, the abilities that you've learned to approach every case with that, you know, mindset and that ability.
Ms. Pendleton.
Yes, I think the most important lessons that I've learned involve humility and compassion. That gets difficult being a prosecutor. We see, felony prosecutor, we see some of the most horrendous crimes, and Findlay, Hancock County is not immune from that. Through my course of 18 years in private practice, the last 7 of those as assistant prosecutor, humility and compassion have become very important. Sometimes you have to learn when to walk away and take a break, say a quick prayer, pray for some divine intervention and some wisdom, and come back into the room ready to negotiate or to proceed with trial. It depends on what the crime is and how we want to move forward. But sometimes you need to exercise a little bit of humility and compassion in doing that, because there's justice at every level and it comes in different forms. Thank you.
As we mentioned, you both have experience as assistant prosecutors. Mr. Abbott has served in that capacity in Fayette County, I believe, correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Pendleton, of course, serves in that role in Hancock County currently. We'll begin with Ms. Pendleton. Explain the advantages you see in electing someone from inside the current office, elevating someone from inside the current office as the next prosecutor.
Well, as Hancock County is roughly just shy of 75,000 people in it. Certainly 3 times the size of a comparable county like Fayette. It presents a lot of different challenges. I will say that Mr. Abbott is correct. The job of the prosecutor is multifaceted. I would never say that it's simply prosecuting criminals, because there is a lot of other work that goes into that. It is case review, search warrants, crime scenes, Metrich drug busts, subpoenas, budget commission, one of the little known things that our prosecutor does. There's also a lot of dealings with township trustees and other elected officials that we represent. And each of those is an important facet of the office. I have had experience over the last 7 years. I have actually been really lucky and also grateful to Prosecutor Phil Regal, because he's given me the opportunity to explore and experience each one of those duties of a prosecutor. And I wish I could tell you it was just as simple as going to a jury trial. It's far from that. It is 100 things a day, pulling you in 100 different directions. Text from law enforcement, other law enforcement officers in the office to have a search warrant reviewed, or Metrich with a search warrant. It just is endless. And it goes on. And I'm 7 years, I'm prepared for the task. I'm up for it. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abbott, similar question. Explain the advantages that you see in electing someone from outside the current office as prosecutor.
Chris, I would say my experiences outside of Hancock County, outside of the Hancock County Prosecutor's Office, are probably my greatest strength. When you're in different locations, different worlds, different zones, you see different attitudes, different cultures, different experiences. You learn what works and what doesn't work. You learn that there's more than one way to skin a cat, really. And like I said, I think that's my biggest strength. I have practiced in over 20 counties in this state. And I think that's probably the biggest asset that I'll bring to the Hancock County Prosecutor's Office is, a fresh set of eyes, a fresh worldview, a fresh way to look at, how case review comes in, how the cases are processed, how efficient our office is when the case is brought in, to travel through the review process, the indictment process, the arraignment, and then the actual, trial or plea when it gets there. In the 20 counties that I've practiced, and I've seen good attorneys, I've seen bad attorneys, I have seen really good judges, I've seen some bad judges and magistrates, and, with those experiences, I bring the good with me. I have sharpened my tool belt. I have, honed the skills that it needs to, be an effective prosecutor, be able to see things in a new light, in a different way. When you've been in one place, when you've seen it one way, you really only know one way sometimes. And, I kind of liken it to like a woodworker's tool belt. You don't need a chisel for every project. You don't need a router for every project or a planer for every project. but you have those tools in your belt and you can pull them out when you need them. When your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
As you look at the current office of prosecuting attorney, do you see any immediate areas of concern or inefficiency in its operation? And if so, what, if anything, would you do immediately day one to address those concerns? We'll start with Mr. Abbott.
Day one, no, absolutely not. It's going to be a process. There's going to be a significant evaluation that goes through. We're going to assess every process that we have. We're going to learn how the cases come in. We're going to learn, how our trustees send issues to us. We're going to, any issue that comes in, any legal problem that needs to be handled, if it's with the commissioners, if it's with the trustees, if it's with the treasurer and tax foreclosures, if it's with law enforcement, we're going to make sure that we have a streamlined process. In a position like county prosecutor, you live and die by your processes and procedures. If you've got a bad process, you're going to struggle. You're going to lose cases. You're going to misplace facts. You're going to misplace evidence, and that is something that simply can't happen in an office such as Hancock County. But in addition to that, I think our county prosecutor's office needs to be very, visible and active within the community. And that starts with, being active with our law enforcement, attending the chief's meetings, attending, the harm reduction meetings. It means, meeting with the Adams Board, meeting with our mental health counselors. When I was an assistant prosecutor in Fayette County, we were very proactive when it came to educating the community. We would write and submit articles to the local newspaper for publication. We wrote articles on teen dating violence. We wrote articles on sexual assaults. We submitted articles on grandparents, rights and what they have and don't have and how they can go about, making a family whole. In addition, we were very proactive about reaching out to our local schools. We would present on the consequences of risky behavior, what the legal ramifications are, what the moral issues are, and what's going to happen if they do it and get caught and come into our office. So I intend to bring that mindset with me as well. We're going to be active, we're going to be visible, we're going to be part of the conversation, part of all of the conversations.
Ms. Pendleton, again, do you see any areas of immediate concern or inefficiency within the current structure of the office? What would you do to address those concerns?
Oh, no, it's perfect the way it is. Okay.
Moving on then.
No. So, of course, as assistant prosecutor, 7 years I've seen from the inside what goes on in our prosecutor's office. 75,000 people here. I know how it runs. I can see room for improvement, but there is no learning curve with me. I don't have to come in and figure it out. I already know what changes I want to make. And Prosecutor Regal has already encouraged me to take that by the horns and make it my own. And I appreciate his faith in me, that he realizes that Heather Pendleton as prosecutor may not look the same way as Phil Regal as prosecutor, and he's okay with that. We've had that conversation. Many of the programs that Mr. Abbott has referred to already exist in Hancock County. We have a guardian program. We have a program for grandparents. A lot of those things are already happening. The meetings with law enforcement, I've got 2 gentlemen showing up tomorrow at 9:30 in my office to have a conversation about charges. So I have no learning curve. There is one improvement I would like to make immediately on day one, and that is take our office into the world of technology. That's one thing we don't do well as government. We lag behind because of funding. I am ready to take that on. We've ordered new laptops that are more robust, that can handle a lot of the digital information that's coming into us now. We receive reports digitally. In juvenile court, we even file all of our filings digitally. So I want to bring the other portions of the office up to speed in that area. And I think that would be a world of improvement if we could just get to more digital discovery, digital filings. Thank you.
Mr. Abbott, you had something to add there.
I do want to add to that. She makes a good point about technology. When I was in Fayette County, I was instrumental in the implementation of a digital case management software program. We went from the analog world of paper files coming in, our secretary signing off on them, and they go into the inbox for prosecutor review. What we did was implemented a new digital system by a company called Carpel, and we basically took all of our analog systems, implemented it into a digital format. Our law enforcement entities submitted all of the new case files digitally. And when they came digitally, we knew when it got there, we had a timestamp, it was received. So, if a paper file gets lost, there's no way we can claim, oops, it wasn't us. It's there. They can verify that the case is there, we can review it, and then we can send it back that way as well if they have questions or concerns.
Ms. Pendleton.
Yes, thank you. I also was integral in the Court View 3 upgrade that Judge Johnson did for her juvenile and probate court system. That was a major overhaul from an older system that just couldn't keep up with the volume and provide the information that we wanted. We could not access filings digitally. So I will never take credit for implementing the entire thing, but I certainly, from the prosecutor's office, worked with the judge's staff in making that happen, and I look forward to doing that again. In fact, I have had that conversation already with Judge Starn, who would like to advance to Court View 3 in the Common Pleas Court Adult Division, and I look forward to that as well. I've got one under my belt. I say we go for more. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we talked about, briefly we asked about the advantages that each of you see in either elevating someone from the inside to prosecutor, bringing someone in from outside with quote-unquote fresh eyes. What about the other side of that question? We'll begin with Ms. Pendleton. What's the biggest challenge in stepping up from assistant prosecutor to prosecutor, and how would you seek to overcome that challenge?
The challenge, I don't see the challenge itself as me stepping up into a role that I have been in training for the last 7 years. I see the biggest challenge to our office, which will become my challenge, is replacing an aging staff. We have over 200 years of combined legal experience in the existing county prosecutor's office. Naturally, some of those attorneys are going to be retiring in the upcoming years, and we already have put into place within the office a natural progression to promote from within and also hire from the outside that we can train up. But the advantage to promoting from within is these attorneys already understand how we do our daily business. They already know law enforcement. They've got those contacts and those relationships already built. So we're simply building on that and really just shifting where people work. I would be concerned about just hiring in an entire new staff and there being a gap in our ability to prosecute felons in Hancock County. We need some consistency, and that consistency is through matriculation or growth within our own office and advancement within our own office. My becoming prosecutor is a course of natural progression. I don't in any way think I'm entitled to it. I'm here to fight for it, and that's what I'm doing.
Mr. Abbott, what is the biggest challenge in coming in from the outside of the current office into the role of prosecutor, and how would you seek to overcome that challenge?
Well, first off, I do want to address the fact that any of the assistant prosecutors that are in the office right now aren't going anywhere. They are a fully staffed office right now. There is experience, there is ability and competence in that office to support a new leader coming into that office. But as far as, how would I handle the staff? I've talked to a significant number. I've worked with a significant number of the attorneys that are in that office in my experience in the private world. I've with both juvenile prosecutors, I've spoken with the civil prosecutors, I've spoken with felony prosecutors. They know who I am. They know how I practice law. They know how I am in the courtroom. And they know that I'm an honest and trustworthy person. I am not getting rid of anybody in that office when I get in there on day one.
I just wanted to make sure that there was anything else that you wanted to say before we move on. At this point, we're going to go ahead and take a brief break. We will come back with more with our two candidates for Hancock County Prosecuting Attorney, Sean Abbott and Heather Pendleton. This is the Candidate Forum on WFIN.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN. And now at 95.5 FM.
The Hancock County Republican Party wants to remind you to join them for their first Friday luncheons. Enjoy a great meal, network with fellow Republicans, and listen to a featured speaker. Lunches are held at the Finley Moose Lodge, number 698. Meal is served at 11:30 and the program starts at noon. March 1st, candidates for state representative, 83rd Ohio District. April 5th, City of Finley update from Mayor Byrne. May 3rd, Hancock County update from commissioners. Please support local, state, and national candidates. For more info, go to hancockcountygop.org.
Your first look at business and the business of life happens each weekday morning on WFIN. Hi, this is Gordon Deal, inviting you to join me at 5 a.m. for This Morning, America's First News. We'll give you the top money and business news and information about managing your money and retirement savings. Plus, there's the latest on technology, e-commerce, careers, health, entertainment, and much more. This Morning, weekdays at 5 a.m. And check out the weekend edition Saturday mornings at 5 on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Take WFIN wherever you go with our updated mobile apps for iPhone and Android. And now you can listen to us on your Alexa device. Get the app at WFIN.com or in the App Store or Google Play. Plus, enable Alexa by searching for WFIN under Skills, and you'll soon be saying, Alexa, play 1330 WFIN. And the best part is the apps and skills are absolutely free. On the air at 1330 WFIN and 95.5 FM. Online at WFIN.com and on your smartphone, tablet, and Alexa devices.
It's today's first look at the top stories every weekday morning. Hi, this is Gordon Deal, inviting you to join me for This Morning, America's First News. We get down to business weekday mornings at 5 on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN. And now at 95.5 FM.
Folks, and we thank you for joining us for this evening's candidate forum featuring the two individuals running in the Republican primary to become Hancock County prosecuting attorney, Sean Abbott and Heather Pendleton. It is very easy for prosecuting attorney to project a tough on crime stance, but prosecutors also have discretion to pursue less than maximum charges and or enter into plea agreements with defendants. What will be your approach as prosecutor in determining when to use that discretion, and are there certain types of cases where anything less than the full weight of the law would not be considered under any circumstances? We'll begin with Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, so you hear the word tough on crime, and to me that's a buzzword. It sounds good to a lot of people. You need to be right on crime. You need to be appropriate on crime. And as a prosecutor, you need to have your priorities, what you're focused on, what you're looking to accomplish as a prosecutor to keep our community safe. And in Hancock County, with the discretion where we can use and we can work with our law enforcement, we're going to focus on drug dealers. We're going to focus on the drug trafficking that comes through Hancock County. That is something that, hopefully if we have a hard line approach on the dealers of methamphetamines, opiates, and fentanyl, we'll send a message to the others, not in Hancock County. And the hope there is that if you are tough on those drug dealers, then the supply dries up, the demand might go away a little bit. When it comes to drug addiction, that's a different story. That's a tough one. If people just don't wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to be a drug addict. They walk a long road to get there, and it's a long road to get out. But that doesn't mean you don't hold their feet to the fire. You still charge them with the offense that they're caught with. If it's a low-level possession of heroin or fentanyl, you still charge them with the felony level offense. But there are methods for them to address that treatment. It could be through the drug court. It could be through intervention in lieu of conviction. First-time offenders aren't going to prison. It's mandatory probation. So you work with them. You walk the path with them, and you hope they make the choice to change to be a productive member of society. But if they don't, then you have no choice but tough love in that case. When it comes to offenses of violence, offenses against people, offenses against property, there's really not much you can do from a leniency standpoint. And that if the shoe fits, you charge it.
Ms. Pendleton.
Yes, thank you. My approach with every case that's assigned to me is it's going to trial. I approach every case as if it's going to end in trial, and that is always in the back of my mind as I'm sitting across the table from a defense attorney and we're talking about a case. Just in the last 6 months, I have prosecuted and gotten convictions of involuntary manslaughter against 3 drug dealers who got off of I-75, came into our community, and sold drugs that killed people that lived here. So, yeah, tough on crime can be a buzzword. It's a buzzword that I happen to use and I plan to live up to. Plea bargaining, what's affectionately referred to as plea bargaining, I believe really comes into play here in Hancock County when the evidence doesn't fit. And sometimes you get a case at the onset and it looks good in one respect, but as you dig into it more, you may find a witness who no longer wants to cooperate or simply falls off the face of the earth and you have no more contact with them. Makes it very difficult to prosecute crimes of violence where there's no victim to testify. I think that every defendant should stand before a judge and be held accountable for what they do. Then it's the judge's job to determine what that sentence is. If that is community control, if that is sentencing to a CBCF, which is a community-based treatment facility that is locked down, then the judge is in the best position to decide what that is. As a prosecutor, that's not my job. My job is to prosecute felons, and that's what I will do.
That actually kind of leads us to our next question, which is along the same lines, and both of you touched on this. In recent years, there have been a number of alternative programs to traditional incarceration that have been implemented, some more successfully than others. What are your thoughts on these types of programs and interventions, and is that something that you would continue to leverage or even expand as prosecutor, be open to expansion as prosecutor? What are the criteria that you would look at in evaluating the value of those types of programs? And we will start with Ms. Pendleton.
I think that 2 of the most important programs that we have that currently operate in Hancock County Common Pleas Court, I think number 1 is the ILC program that is used by the Common Pleas Court judges. ILC is in lieu of conviction. It is for defendants who have a low-level drug charge, primarily the F5, F4. They are charged, they stand before a judge, they plead guilty, and then there's a motion to put them into the ILC program where they have to stand before a judge, be held accountable, and then enter into treatment. If they're not successful with that treatment, then they go back before the judge and they are convicted of the crime, and then we start to look at other possible penalties. I don't think that there is ever a penalty that is too strict if it saves someone's life, and that may in fact be an addict, because addicts by definition cannot stop. If they could, they would. They cannot stop. They need to be held accountable and stand in front of a judge who can determine their sentence, give them an option to enter into treatment, and if they don't follow through, there are consequences. But it is about accountability at every level of crime. We also have another successful program that's run as a nonprofit outside of the court system, Welcome to a New Life. I have had a lot of interaction with them through my work as an assistant prosecutor because they provide support services for felons or convicted felons. A lot of programming for not only addicts but also for mental health. They're about getting released when an individual is released, whether it be through an ILC treatment program or released from prison. They're there to catch them when they fall and help them build a new life. Thank you.
Mr. Abbott, it requires a collaborative approach through all aspects of the system. You know, there's law enforcement that's on the street actually enforcing the laws gathering the facts, finding what happened, then they're bringing it to the prosecutor's office. Once the prosecutor then has it, they have the choice as to whether to file it as a felony, or if the felony doesn't fit, send it down to the law directors for a potential misdemeanor. But once the prosecutor files the case, it's in the court system at that point. The revised code sets out the parameters for the intervention in lieu of conviction program, and the defendant has to basically prove to the court that drugs or alcohol led and created that offense. And if the court believes that and thinks this is the right way to go, they're going to put that person in the ILC program. And there is a thumb over their head. They have entered a plea. That plea is held in abeyance until either they successfully complete the program, and everybody's hoping they successfully complete the program. But if they don't, like Ms. Pendleton said, they come back before the judge, and then the judge determines what is the next step. And I guess with all the programs that are available, the Welcome to a New Life, the FRC, any of the addiction providers in this community, they're involved with the court system. So if a person's been sentenced to probation, probation's also going to send them that way. And if they continue to fail there, probation can kick them back before the judge and say, this person is not upholding their terms of probation, we want further sanctions. And the judge at that point can impose some jail time. He can impose prison if the judge deems fit. But that's working with the judge, that's working with the addiction community, that's working with everybody that's involved in creating a unified approach. There is no one-size-fits-all in these cases. So it's when you get those cases, you hope when you present it, you are getting it right.
Ms. Pendleton?
Yes, thank you. For calendar year 2023, and I say calendar year because a case could be filed late in 22 and be carried over, or could be filed late in 23 and carried into calendar year 24. So, with all things being equal, if you look at the calendar year of 2023, our Common Pleas Court received 76, plus or minus a few, 76 motions for ILC that were filed by defense attorneys. 76 people who had a reason to enter this program. Of those, 33 completed intakes at our probation department. Only 33. 43 of those motions that were filed were denied by the judges. And the most common reason that they were denied is because that defendant never showed up for their treatment interview, or they failed to follow through, or they failed to appear for the plea into ILC hearing. And that's sad.
Like most communities, Hancock County faces many challenges with crime. Much of the conversation has revolved around the drug issue, and we've discussed that. As a growing community, what other than concerns over the drug problem, what other areas would most concern you with respect to keeping the community safe and protected? And we'll begin with Mr. Abbott.
One of the things about law enforcement and the prosecutor's office in general is we are reactionary to the crime being committed. We can't go out and manufacture a crime or manufacture an offense. So we really are reactive to the phone calls that come in to law enforcement. If there is an offense of violence, a domestic violence, an assault, some sort of altercation that occurs, we don't know when that's going to happen, so we really can't target that too much. The drugs, again, we hammer on the drugs. Drugs. And drugs are a tough issue, but outside of drugs, everything else, we can focus on targeting, areas where there are higher levels of offense. We can work with our law enforcement there to patrol certain neighborhoods that may, trigger certain calls. We can work with our law enforcement to work with the schools to address the issues that they're seeing and to proactively, address any issues that they see coming down the road. But, unfortunately, when crime comes, the only thing you can do is react to it, investigate it, and then prosecute it.
Ms. Pendleton?
Drugs obviously is the largest problem that faces us. When you look at 571 indictments, or 542 indictments in the year 2023 that we filed, 371, it's not a direct correlation, but 371 charges for possession of drugs. This is a huge number to us. There are other crimes that go along with it. I think the most common ones are theft, burglary, and robbery, because these people are committing crimes to try to fund their own habit. Along with that, of course, is trafficking in drugs, because once again, I need to sell it to get more of it so I can continue my own habit. I think that it's important for all of these felonies, not just the ones I listed, but all of them. They need to be held accountable. They need to be charged, and they need to stand in front of a judge. One of the main principles to sentencing is to deter crime, and I think that we do that through conservative judges who aren't afraid to put prison on the table. Thank you.
I want to get into a couple of questions involving sort of the nuts and bolts of your experience. As we mentioned earlier, both of you do have prior experience as assistant prosecuting attorneys. How many cases have you tried in that role, and how many convictions? Ms. Pendleton.
I knew this would come up. I wrote this down. So I have, in my career that I was able to find, I pulled what reports I could. I have done 63 bench trials, 3 jury trials that averaged 4 days each, 11 motions to invoke with sworn testimony, 4 probation violations with sworn testimony, 1 civil commitment to a mental institution, again with sworn testimony. That's a total of 82 trials with sworn testimony. I also have 1,234 adjudications, give or take. As for criminal pleas, couldn't even begin to count that high. And any other ancillary hearings, again, couldn't count. I don't keep track. And I don't believe there's a report in our office that would produce that. So,
Mr. Abbott.
I guess this is some of the things that she says. These terms matter in the legal system. I'm not sure what she means by bench trials. If she's talking about criminal bench trials to the judge, where there's witnesses brought in to convict a defendant of an offense, a motion to invoke, I presume that's in the juvenile court. The adjudication, the word adjudication is in the juvenile court. That means a trial in the juvenile court. So I guess back to answer your question, as adult felony lead prosecutor, I have had 16 jury trials where I was the lead or the co-counsel. My record in those 16 jury trials is I have 11 convictions guilty as charged. 3 of them came out not guilty, and 2 were mistrials. And as a second chair, I've sat on 2. That was when I was younger and learning and seeing the process, but I don't factor those into my number. And I also trained an assistant prosecutor as well, and I helped her with the voir dire of the case. But as far as jury trials, as lead counsel, 16, 11, 3, and 2. Since I've been back in Hancock County, I have represented 274 separate clients. If you search the Clerk of Court's website, you're going to see my case results come up. I'm going to bring up 2 pages of results. So I have been an actively practicing attorney, and I have extensive jury trial experience. I've done it. I've put my feet to the fire. I've held the defendants to the fire, and I've been successful at that.
Ms. Pendleton.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that my competition circulated information at the fair that he had done 50 trials and adjudications. So when you lump them together, what is the real number? Because I've separated mine out, and he should know that a bench trial is to the judge. Additionally, none of my convictions have been overturned. I would also like to say that 274 clients are in the civil realm because you have not prosecuted even a parking ticket in Hancock County.
Okay. The case that was overturned was State of Ohio versus Cody Green because the judge did not appoint an independent evaluation for his mental health. So that was a ruling by the judge. If you look at the records, Cody Green has since pled guilty to that charge of rape. Since I've been in Hancock County, I've done 47 adjudications. In Fayette County, like I said, the 18 jury trials that I was a part of, plus the other one is 19, plus every other jury trial that came through our office, we had a collaborative approach. So the numbers is well above 50. I can't give you an exact number, but there's no misleading going on there.
And I think we can skip the next question that I was going to ask regarding convictions overturned on appeal, because I think you both actually addressed that in the comments and the rebuttals. So with that, we'll move forward. And lastly, we have all seen prosecutors do their jobs on television and in the movies. What is the most common misperception that the general public has about what a prosecuting attorney's job really is like versus what we see in the popular legal dramas? We'll begin with Ms. Rabbit.
It's not CSI. I can tell you that. Every time we do a jury trial, one of the things I talk to the jurors about is that CSI type of evidence. You know, and I tell them, you're not going to get it. It's just not real world. We don't have the money for it. That's Hollywood TV. You can't just, type into a computer and you got all these things that pop up. That's just not how it happens. You have real testimony. You have witnesses that testify, that provide oral testimony, which is evidence. You have documentary evidence. Very little of it in those types of cases is actually, digital or technological. The other misconception is how fast the law goes. When it comes to the initial report of a crime from the law enforcement investigating that crime, they're taking days, weeks, months to investigate that crime, put their case together to build that case. They then bring that case to the county prosecutor's office. The prosecutor then takes the time to say, do we have enough? Do we need more? They evaluate, they analyze, and you continue to build that case and put it together. And that could be another couple months. And once you finally present that case to the grand jury, there's the indictment and the arraignment. And then at that point, you're looking at another couple months. We have rights to speedy trial, of course, but in almost every case, you're going to see a defendant waive that. So really, the speed of law, the technology aspect of it, it gives us this cool version of what we think, prosecutor's office does, but that's just not the case.
Ms. Pendleton?
Yes, if I may, I would like to address one thing briefly on the prior question. There was also a case locally, a CPS case out of the 3rd District, where I believe you were reprimanded for failing to follow Rule 48 in a child services case where you failed to interview the father and the child.
It was a 5-year-old child. And I interviewed the child, Heather.
Still noted by the 3rd District Court of Appeals.
It's probably put in by an assistant prosecutor in your office.
We don't write the opinions of the 3rd District judges. Yeah. Anyways, back to the question, Chris. I apologize.
Nope, that's fine.
There is no 20-minute trial. There is no magic. There is no gotcha that shows up at the end, and that's the difficult thing, trying to get a jury to understand. You can sit up here and tout your jury trial experience, but the sad truth is when you're 3 years out of the game, you've missed a lot. We have prosecutors' conferences every 6 months to update us on the law, and I don't even think that's frequent enough because those legislators like to change it all the time. So keeping up is very difficult, even as an assistant prosecutor, doing it here, doing it now. It is difficult to keep up, but we do, and we do our best. I can't imagine trying to do it not having done it in the last 3 years. Thank you.
And that concludes the question and answer portion of our forum. We'll now go to closing statements. I have to say that I felt a little strange actually being the one cross-examining the attorneys in this. But, so with our closing statements, we'll begin with Ms. Pendleton.
Yes, I want to start out, obviously, by thanking WFIN and Chris for organizing this forum and really giving us an opportunity to speak to you, the community, you, our voters. That is so important for you to understand the differences between both Sean and I. I have sat up here tonight and have tried to impress upon you how I am tough on crime, how all of my legal experience for the last 7 years has been in Hancock County, and I am, in fact, the proven conservative candidate up here. I cannot even begin to tell you what serving you as assistant prosecutor for the last 7 years has meant to me. I am fighting hard, and I am fighting for you. You're my community. This is my home. Protecting you is my #1 priority. When Phil Regal moves on to common pleas court judge, as is most likely, I think the one thing that resonates with me is when Phil Regal is out of the office, he leaves me in charge. That says more to me than any endorsement could. Phil, as a candidate for judge, cannot endorse or support any candidate, and I understand why the rules are the way they are. But the fact that he has enough faith and trust in me to leave me in charge of the office when he is required to be elsewhere means the world to me, far more than any endorsement could ever mean. I have been serving as assistant prosecutor for the last 7 years for Hancock County. I am ready now to serve as your next prosecutor. I look forward to your vote on March 19th. Thank you.
Mr. Abbott.
Thank you also, Chris, for taking the time to moderate this event. Thank you to WFIN. This really has been informative. So last month, a political candidate came to our Republican First Friday lunch, and he said something that resonated with me. He said, every time we present to the voters, to the public, it is a job interview. And that's true. This is a job interview. And with any job interview, what's the first thing the interviewer looks at? And that's the candidate's resume. Does it meet the experience necessary for the job? And for the position of Hancock County Prosecutor, my resume meets and exceeds the skills and requirements necessary. I have served as a law clerk for the United States District Court, for the United States Attorney's Office. I have extensive private practice experience. I have extensive prosecution experience. And most importantly, I have extensive adult felony jury trial experience. I've published my resume for everybody to see it. Don't rely on what we say to you. Look at it. Don't rely on billboards. Don't rely on the literature. But the interview also doesn't stop at a resume. You also ask yourself, is this candidate the right person for the job? Are they approachable? Are they trustworthy? Are they a leader? Are they able to build and maintain trust and relationships? And are they an active member of the community? And that person is me. But here's the thing. We're both competing for your votes. We're both trying to convince you we are the right person for the job. But how does the job interviewer combat that? They check references. They check the records. Check my references. Call the elected prosecutor in Fayette County. Call the elected sheriff in Fayette County. And I urge each of you to search the local court records. Reach out to members of the legal community, the judicial system, and ask them who they recommend for county prosecutor. I don't know if it's going to be me. I don't know if it's going to be her. But what they will tell you is that Sean Abbott is qualified, experienced, and he's committed to his community. I am Sean Abbott. I am committed to keeping Hancock County safe, and I'm asking for your vote for Hancock County prosecutor on or before March 19th. Thank you.
And with that, we conclude tonight's candidate forum. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'd also like to thank the candidates for taking part in tonight's event. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote in the March primary is February 20th. Early in-person and absentee voting begins February 21st, and Election Day itself is Tuesday, March 19th. Also, we invite you to join us next Monday when we will hear from the Republican candidates for the Ohio House of Representatives in the 83rd District, John Cross and Ty Matthews. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thanks for joining us for tonight's political forum.
Tonight's forum has been presented by the Hancock County Republican Party.
The preceding has been a special presentation of your news authority, 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Road work, detours, traffic backups, and delays. It can get a little frustrating and confusing, but we can help keep you ahead of the game. This is WFIN News Director Matt Demchek. Just check out the traffic center at WFIN.com and you'll know where the trouble spots are in Findlay and Hancock County. Download Waze, use it whenever you're driving, and join our drive team to help inform others of traffic issues. The WFIN Traffic Center, powered by Waze, and available at WFIN.com.
Vision loss is not something that you feel until it happens.
Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration and glaucoma, not at birth.
With macular degeneration, you lose your central vision.
You have a blind spot right in the center of your face, so I can't actually see your face.
So even that little circle in which I could see became a big blur.
I was 65 when I first was diagnosed with glaucoma.
There were no symptoms. I had no headaches.
3 million Americans have glaucoma, and half don't even know it.
11 million people in the United States have macular degeneration.
You lose mobility, independence, changes your entire life.
So many eye disorders can be treated if caught early.
My husband tells me that I have beautiful brown eyes, and I don't want to lose that.
Make a plan today to get your eyes checked.
Visit brightfocus.org to learn more.
Agriculture is a big deal in the Buckeye State. That's why WFIN keeps you informed throughout the day with reports on Ohio's largest industry. This is Dale Menyo from the Ohio AgNet. We start your weekday mornings at 5:30 and 7:35 with that day's farm news. Then a midday update at 10:45, markets at 11:15, and the closing